The arena smelled of rust ozone and old violence. Beneath the artificial sky of orbital zone Kareos 9, the pit was more than entertainment, it was economy. And for Dax Morrow, it was survival. Cheers echoed from the multi-tiered stands, filled with a patchwork of alien species, Gorovans, Threx, even a few humans exiled from Earth. Each shouted in their native tongues, unified in bloodlust. Dax stood alone in the crimson sand arena, sweat dripping from his bare shoulders. His left arm, wrapped in reinforced combat mesh, glinted under the artificial lighting, humming faintly with preloaded energy pulses. The last opponent, a towering glass brute, lay collapsed at his feet, still breathing barely. Victory to the Boneborn, the announcer's voice bellowed through the arena's wide domes. The crowd erupted. Boneborn, they called him part myth, part marketing. A human who had won 18 consecutive matches without dying, without even breaking stride. But Dax wasn't there for glory. He was there for Lysa. With a flick of his wrist, the mesh arm disengaged its energy claws and snapped back into passive mode. Dax turned toward the gate, his breathing steady despite the battle. The arena doors parted, and from them emerged a floating dais carrying Vrixkor, the arena owner. A half-mechanid merchant lord dressed in obsidian silk and dermal plating, Vrix radiated the kind of oily charm only crooks perfected. "Ah, Morrow," he purred, descending to ground level. "You honor my floors with yet another stunning display." "I'm not here for praise," Dax said, voice low. "I want my winnings. You promised me a payout big enough to buy my sister's freedom from the Hailtrax mines." Vrix clucked his tongue, serpentine eyes narrowing. Of course. But you understand currency fluctuates, and values shift. The prize has been upgraded." Dax stiffened. "What does that mean?" A set of guards dragged forward a containment sphere. Inside was a figure, a woman humanoid in shape, but distinctly alien. Her skin shimmered silver green under the lights, and her eyes, solid gold irises, watched him with a sharpness that cut deeper than blades. She was bound at the wrists, a suppression collar glowing faintly around her neck. "What is this?" Dax growled. "I asked for credits, not people." "She's very," Vrix explained, gesturing as if unveiling art. "Extremely rare. Some say they're extinct. This one is spirited, untrainable perhaps, but certainly valuable." Dax's eyes narrowed. "You think I want a slave?" "Think of it as leverage," Vrix said smoothly. "Sell her, trade her, break her. You'll make more than your promised cut eventually." Inside the sphere, the Viari woman never flinched, never looked away. There was fear in her posture, yes, but buried beneath it was defiance. "No," Dax said. "This wasn't our deal," and yet Vrix smiled coldly. "This is the only deal left. Take her or walk away empty-handed." Before Dax could retort, the alarms blared. The entire arena floor shook as klaxons screamed across the station. From the upper galleries, armored figures stormed down, military by the look of them, dressed in the rigid slate gray of the Ascendancy Corps. A voice barked orders. "Secure the fugitive. The Viari is Ascendancy property." "Damn it," Dax hissed, backing away from the now frantic scene. Vrix's expression flipped instantly to one of panic. "You can't take her. She's mine now." The squad commander strode forward, scanning the containment sphere. "You'll be compensated, citizen. Stand aside." The Viari woman's eyes locked with Dax's, pleading, not with words but in something more primal. It reminded him of the way Lisa had looked the day they'd taken her, helpless but proud and betrayed by the system meant to protect her. Without thinking, Dax moved. A flick of his wrist reignited the claws on his combat mesh. Energy arced with a sharp hum. He stepped between the containment sphere and the soldiers. "She's under my protection," he said. The commander sneered. "Stand down, human. This is Ascendancy jurisdiction." "Then file a complaint," Dax replied and slashed. The nearest soldier's rifle split in half with a single strike. Chaos exploded across the arena. The crowd screamed. Blaster fire lit up the floor. Dax dove, shielding the sphere, as plasma bolts slammed into the walls behind him. One clipped his shoulder, but the mesh absorbed most of it. "Cover," he barked, punching the release on the containment. The sphere hissed and the door slid open. The Viari woman stumbled free, her collar flickering. "I'm not leaving you here," Dax said, grabbing her wrist. "Can you run?" She gave a single nod. "Then stay close." They sprinted through the chaos, ducking behind debris and stunned onlookers. The arena gates were sealed, but Dax knew a back route, a ventilation shaft used by smugglers to bring in off-book contenders. As they moved, he glanced back at the woman. "You got a name, Sevra," she said, voice rough but clear. "And I won't slow you down." "I'm not worried," he replied. "But we're going to have to run fast if we want to stay alive." They vanished into the shadows just as more soldiers flooded the arena. Behind them, Vrix screamed in fury. But it was too late. The human had taken the prize, and the war for both their freedoms had just begun. The ventilation shaft stank of oxidized metal and old blood. Dax crawled ahead, Sevra following closely behind. Her movements were silent, her breathing calm as if she were more predator than fugitive. They dropped into a dim maintenance corridor beneath the arena complex. The walls sweated condensation, and every few seconds a shudder rippled through the station, a reminder that Kareos 9 wasn't a place meant to last. "Where are we going?" Sevra asked, her voice quieter than the echo of their footfalls. "There's someone I know," Dax said. "She runs a freighter ring on the lower levels, gets people in and out of Kareos unnoticed. If anyone can get us off this station, it's her." They passed broken drones and discarded mech parts. Dax kept one hand on the grip of his pulse dagger ears, straining for the sound of boots, ascendancy patrols, bounty hunters, or worse. Sevra, for her part, moved like someone used to watching their back. "You trust this person?" she asked. "No," Dax said flatly. "But I owe her, and she likes leverage." Sevra tilted her head. "What kind of leverage am I?" He stopped abruptly and turned to face her. "You're not leverage. You're someone who just went from target to liability, and I'm the idiot who decided to get in the way." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sevra nodded once. "Good. I don't want to be a bargaining chip. I want my freedom." "Then help me get it," Dax said, and kept walking. The lower levels of Kareos 9 were a different world. No cheering crowds here, only grime, heat, and the sickly smell of synth oil. Neon signs flickered in languages no longer spoken on Earth. Alien voices hissed deals in shadowed alleys, and everyone carried a weapon. Or multiple. Dax led Sevra down a tight alley between two fused cargo lifts until they reached a security door with no markings, save for a carved symbol, a flame inside a broken ring. He knocked 3 times, paused then twice more. The door slid open. Inside stood a tall woman in a long armored coat. Her head was shaved on one side, and her left eye had been replaced by a glowing amber implant. She smiled without warmth. "Well," she said, "the pit legend lives." "Hello," Evra, Dax said. "I need a ship." Evra leaned against the doorframe and looked Sevra up and down. This her Dax tensed. "She has a name." Sevra stepped forward. "I'm Sevra. Vayeri." Evra whistled softly. "Now that's a word I haven't heard in years. Thought your people were wiped out in the Kelgar purges." "Many were," Sevra said coolly. "Some of us learned how to hide." Evra looked back at Dax. "You do realize Ascendancy Command is offering 20,000 racks for a Vayeri alive or dead?" "I'm not interested in blood money," Dax replied. Evra's smile faded. "And what makes you think I'm not?" "Because if you were, you'd have shut that door already," Dax said. "But you didn't, which means you want something else." Evra stepped aside. "Come in." The hideout was hidden beneath an abandoned processing center. Holograms disguised the interior as vacant, but inside it was a sleek command hub of smuggler activity. Pilots, mercs, and technicians moved like parts of a well-oiled machine. Evra poured a drink and sat across from Dax and Sevra. "I assume this has something to do with your sister," she said. Dax nodded. "Still stuck on Terry Vault. That mining penal colony isn't just cruel, it's lethal. She won't survive another cycle. I thought you were saving for her ransom." "I was," Dax said bitterly. "Until Vrix scammed me and handed me Sevra instead of credits." "Lucky me," Sevra muttered. Dax glanced at her. "No offense. None taken." Evra drummed her fingers on the table. "And you want me to smuggle both of you out, get you to Terra Vault, and maybe start a fight with the Ascendancy while I'm at it?" "That's the idea," Dax said. Evra chuckled. "I've done worse. But I don't do charity, Dax. You want out, I want something in return. Name it." She tapped a console. A 3-dimensional map appeared of an Ascendancy facility labeled Zeta Core Relay Node, Level 7. "I need a data shard from that relay," Ivara said. "Top-level access codes to their long-range sensor grid. It'll let me mask my ships from future detection. That place is locked tighter than a command vault, Dax said. Ivra smirked. That's why I'm sending the legend. And now his shiny new partner. Severa leaned forward. You want us to infiltrate a black site relay hub guarded by Ascendancy operatives, while they're hunting me? Yes, Ivara said simply. You do that and I'll get you off Kireo's safe passage to Terra's vault and weapons to stage a rescue. Otherwise, she let the implication hang. Dax and Severa exchanged a look. You ever break into a military complex before he asked her? I've escaped from 3, Severa said. But this time, I'd prefer to walk out the front door instead of being chased through one. Dax grinned. Guess that makes 2 of us. Later in a cramped staging room, Dax fitted new armor plating to his mesh arm, while Severa reconfigured a disruptor pistol from Ivara's stash. Neither spoke for a long time. Then Dax finally broke the silence. Why were they after you? Severa hesitated. The Veiri were more than diplomats and scholars. We had neurological interfaces with technology. Symbiotic, unique. The Ascendancy wanted to harvest that ability, use it to control tech beyond their understanding. Like bio-linked weapon systems or ships, she said. Even planetary grids. We weren't just prisoners, they were experimenting on us. And you escaped. I tore off my own interface node and ran until my blood turned to fire, she said. I've been hunted ever since. Dax stared at her for a long moment. Well, I've had worse teammates. A small smile played at the corner of her lips. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. Outside, Ivara's voice crackled through the comms. Clock's ticking. Get in, get the shard, and get out. Your future's riding on this. Dax stood extending a hand to Severa. Then let's not waste it. They clasped wrists. One human fighter with nothing to lose. One fugitive with secrets locked behind golden eyes. And one mission that might finally begin to tip the scales. The Zeta Core relay node sat buried beneath 3 kilometers of ferrocrete in steel, nestled in the lower spine of Kireos 9 like a venomous gland. Above it, the orbital station bustled with trade entertainment and shadow markets. But down here in the forgotten belly of the station, silence reigned. Dax and Severa stood at the edge of a maintenance corridor that opened into the outer perimeter of the relay hub. The air was still and cold, tinged with the scent of ozone and burnt wiring. Their gear provided by Ivara disguised them as low-grade maintenance personnel, complete with forged credentials and magnetic ID bands. I count 2 guards at the junction, Severa whispered, her gold eyes flickering faintly in the dark. Thermals suggest they're not augmented. Still armed, Dax asked, tightening the straps on his armor. Pulse carbines, standard issue. We don't want a firefight here. The relay goes into lockdown with a single shot fired. Then we'll do this quiet. Severa reached for her sidearm, a sleek disruptor with a non-lethal setting, and nodded. I go high, you sweep low, like we rehearsed, Dax said. In silence, they moved. The operation started smoothly. Severa slipped above the guards via a vent shaft, dropping down behind them with a swiftness that would have shamed most mercenaries. A flick of her wrist, a quick zap from her stun device, and the first guard crumpled. Dax caught the second off guard, disabling him with a reverse elbow strike, followed by a neural tap at the base of the skull. They dragged the unconscious guards into the dark, stripped their key cards, and moved deeper into the relay station. The interior architecture changed with every level. Functional industrial steel gave way to sterile white plating. The lighting turned colder. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. No voices, no signs of life. This place gives me bad memories, Severa muttered. Of what labs, she replied. And what they did to my people. Dax said nothing, but his jaw tightened. They reached the central data core after nearly 20 minutes of weaving through maintenance corridors and dodging motion scanners. It stood in the middle of a chamber, reinforced with 6 blast shields and a motion-sensitive floor grid. The crystalline column at the center thrummed with internal energy data flowing like liquid light within it. There's the shard chamber, Severa said, pointing to a recessed console at the base. It's coded to internal biometric signatures. We'll need to spoof a command-level officer. Didn't Ivara give us an override chip? She gave us a prototype, Severa corrected. It's not guaranteed to work. And if we mess it up, the entire core might purge and self-destruct. Well, no pressure then. Dax knelt by the console while Severa handed him the shard extractor tool. He inserted the forged override chip and keyed in the sequence. The terminal flickered, then stabilized. Access granted. They both exhaled. Severa reached inside and pulled out the data shard, a matte black crystal about the size of a finger, cold to the touch and humming with power. Got it, she said, slipping it into the reinforced case. Then the lights went red. Intrusion detected, boomed an automated voice. Lockdown in 30 seconds. Someone tripped an external scan, Severa said, cursing. We're moving, Dax growled. They sprinted from the data core as shutters began to slam down across every corridor. They barely made it past a checkpoint before a blast door sealed behind them. Severa pulled up their escape route on her wrist pad. Service duct above the coolant conduit, she called. There's a 2-minute window before internal purge protocols engage. Lead the way, Dax said. They scrambled up a maintenance scaffold and into a narrow shaft. Behind them, the sound of ascending guards echoed, boots on metal commands, barked in clipped tones. Severa paused at a cross-section. Which way? Dax closed his eyes, visualizing Avara's map. Left, then down 3 floors. That'll get us to the waste funnel. You want to escape through garbage ejection? It's either that or die poetic. She snorted. Charming. By the time they reached the ejector shaft, alarms echoed station-wide. The funnel was dormant, but scheduled for a purge every 6 hours. The next would be in 90 seconds. I hope you're not afraid of falling, Dax muttered. I'm afraid of dying slowly, Severa replied, tightening the seals on her cloak. This seems faster. Together they stepped into the shaft. The suction pulled at them immediately, the gravity nullifier field destabilizing. Dax activated his drop boots old tech with a limited hover burst and grabbed Severa's hand. You better hold tight. I plan to. The purge cycle began. The shaft roared to life as they plummeted. They emerged from the shaft near the undercity canals, an ancient section of the station built before regulations existed. The air was foul but breathable. Sludge flowed past their feet as they waded through a side tunnel and emerged near one of Ivara's old smuggler checkpoints. A contact was already waiting. The lanky insectoid courier flicked its antennae. Data Severa handed him the case. He scanned it, chirped in satisfaction, and opened a secondary compartment in the wall. Your ride is ready, he buzzed. Level 12. Docking platform Delta. Where's Avara? Dax asked. Gone to prep your shipment. Told me to tell you, good job, legend. Don't get caught on the way up. The courier vanished into the shadows. Dax and Severa climbed a rusted stairwell toward level 12. As they walked, Dax broke the silence. You didn't have to come with me back there. I know, Severa said. But I chose to. Why? She looked at him. Because I've been hunted for what I am for so long, I forgot what it felt like to choose a direction. Dax nodded slowly. Well, he said next direction is Terra's vault. Your sister, Severa murmured. We'll get her. I hope so. Behind them, the relay station burned beneath a silent containment seal. Above them, the storm was only beginning. Terra's vault was a world that seemed allergic to light. From orbit, it looked like a ball of ash swirled with acidic clouds. The planet's once thriving surface was long buried under layers of industrial waste and scorched crust, carved open by centuries of mining operations. Only its equatorial refineries and polar prison complexes remained operational, if operational meant extracting labor until the laborers died. Dax Morrow stared through the viewing port of their ship's cramped cockpit, fists clenched. That's it, he said. That's where they sent her. Severa stood beside him, her arms crossed. And where we're going. The smuggling vessel Avara had provided the Javelin was small but fast, with a sensor-baffling hull and a cloaking system that had saved them more than once. Now it drifted silently in TerraVault's upper atmosphere, masked from the orbital patrols below. Severa activated the holomap. According to the Ascendancy's prison grid, your sister Lysa is scheduled for transfer from Labor Block 9 to Transport Center 3, she said. That happens in just under 20 hours. And if we miss it, she's shipped to the core systems. Medical Research Division. Dax didn't reply, but the tension in his shoulders said everything. Severa tapped the console, highlighting a narrow valley on the route. This canyon is our best chance. The transport has to pass through it on the way to the launch pad. Limited aerial coverage. Steep walls. We ambush them here. Dax studied the terrain. We'll need to disable the escort vehicles fast. Anything less, and they'll radio for reinforcements. I'll handle the electronics, Severa said. You handle the guns. They shared a look. A silent agreement formed in the space between them. No room for mistakes. The Javelin set down in a ravine 4 kilometers from the ambush point. Dax and Severa hiked across blackened dunes, heat simmering beneath the planet's thin atmosphere. Terra's vault wasn't just hot, it was angry. The air tasted of chemicals and regret. Dax's boots sank into cracked terrain that had once been farmland, centuries before the mining corporations arrived. As they walked, he finally asked the question that had been on his mind since Koreos. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Severa didn't look at him. Infiltrations, yes. Extractions, yes. Personal missions. She paused. No. Dax adjusted the sling on his pulse rifle. "Why help me? Why not just run while you had the chance? I did run," she said, "and I was alone every step of the way. But helping you, that's something different." Dax didn't push further. They reached the canyon by dusk. They spent the night in silence, camped in a small alcove above the road. Severa sat cross-legged, calibrating an EMP charge. Her hands moved with calm precision, her face lit by the pale glow of her tools. Dax watched her for a long moment before finally lying back and staring at the rust-red sky. "You said the Veyari could interface with technology. Did they choose who could know?" Severa said, not looking up. "It chose us. Genetic resonance, neural elasticity. We could merge our minds with systems to pilot, to repair, to feel machines. Sounds like power." "It was," she admitted, "but it came with consequences. The more we bonded, the more the machine remembered us. Some Veyari didn't come back fully human." Dax was quiet. "My sister." He said at last she didn't have any of that. "She's just normal. Strong, stubborn, but normal." Severa met his eyes. "That's what they're afraid of. Not the ones with obvious power, but the ones they can't control." A distant rumble interrupted them. Lights flickered along the canyon road below. "It's time," Severa said. The transport convoy approached just after local midnight. 3 vehicles, a lead security skimmer, the central prisoner transport, and a rear drone truck packed with surveillance tech. Dax took position with a long-range pulse launcher. Severa crawled down to a concealed access panel buried beneath the canyon's edge, where she linked into the Ascendancy's tactical grid. The convoy entered the kill zone. Now Severa whispered. Dax fired. The lead skimmer exploded in a flash of electric blue, tumbling into the canyon wall. The drone truck spun, caught in the EMP wave Severa had triggered moments before. The prisoner transport screeched to a halt. Alarms blared. Dax dropped down the ridge in 2 strides, his rifle up. Out of the truck, he barked. "Hands where I can see them." The guards hesitated just a second too long. Severa moved like lightning, disabling their sidearm signals with a jamming pulse and slamming one with a stun round to the chest. Dax swept the remaining guard's legs and pinned him unconscious. The scene was quiet in seconds. They forced open the transport's rear compartment. Rows of haggard prisoners stared back, most too weak to speak. "Lisa Morrow," Dax called. No one answered. Then a weak voice near the rear murmured, "Here!" He rushed inside. Lisa was older than he remembered. Harder. Her eyes were sunken, her hair chopped short, her wrists bruised from restraints. But her voice, hoarse and breathy, still held the steel he knew. "Dax, it's me," he said, voice cracking. "I'm here." She reached up and he pulled her into a trembling embrace. "I thought I'd never see you again. You almost didn't." Severa worked quickly, helping the other prisoners out. Most were in no shape to flee, but she set them up with med kits and freed their binds. Dax carried Lisa to the ridge as Severa covered their tracks. Soon the Javelin was in the air, leaving a trail of heat and ash behind. In the med bay, Lisa sat quietly as Dax ran a scanner over her. "You've got injuries," he said, "but nothing permanent. We'll get you healthy again." She nodded. They took blood every week. Ran tests. Said I was, different. Severa appeared in the doorway. "They flagged you. You're on a list connected to something called Project Ascendant." Dax's eyes narrowed. "I've heard that name," Severa nodded. "It's what the Ascendancy is hiding. What they're building. It's tied to why they want people like her." Lisa looked between them. "Why me? Because you're not broken," Dax said. "And that scares them." Outside, the stars turned slowly as the Javelin broke orbit. Below Terra's vault shrank behind them, still burning, still enslaving. But one spark had escaped, and the fire was only beginning to spread. The javelin drifted in the darkness beyond Terra Vault, its engines cool, its lights dimmed. Inside, the air was tense with silence, one not of peace, but of revelation. In the central chamber, Severus stood over the holographic terminal, reviewing the contents of the stolen data shard. Dax and Lisa sat nearby, watching the light cast patterns across Severus' silver-green skin. "This thing's more than just shipping routes and encryption logs," Severus said, her voice low. "It's the framework for something colossal," Project Ascendant, Dax muttered. Severa nodded. "It's not just a research program. It's a cross-species initiative. The Ascendancy has been targeting humans with specific neural adaptability markers. People who bond with machines think faster, react faster. Your sister's one of them." Lisa tensed. "They never told me anything. Just more tests, more restraints." "You were on their watch list from the beginning," Severa replied. "This shard, either by accident or intention, includes detailed reports, field trials, notes on genetic traits, even activation protocols." Dax leaned forward. "Activation. They're not just studying," Severa said. "They're trying to trigger something, awaken latent traits. It's experimental, unstable, and cruel." Lisa's voice trembled. "What would they have done if they succeeded?" Severa hesitated. "Integrated you into their systems, permanently. Neural fusion interfaces. You'd be more than human, but no longer free." Dax stood, fists clenched. "Then we stop them. We take this data public." "Too dangerous," Severa replied. "Ascendancy controls the media hubs, the relay networks, the message couriers. They'll spin this or bury it." "Then where do we go?" Severa looked up, her expression unreadable. "Verdari space." Lisa blinked. "That's your homeworld, right?" Severa nodded. "My people have been watching humanity for generations. Long before official contact. We saw the neural potential, first studied it from afar. We knew it would manifest one day. We just didn't think the Ascendancy would exploit it so soon." Dax crossed his arms. "So the Verdari just sat on this information?" "We had our reasons," Severa said coolly. "But I'm done waiting. With this shard, we have evidence. And if we reach my clan, the House of Varel, they'll have no choice but to intervene." "You think they'll just accept humans as allies because you asked them to?" Severa's gold eyes hardened. "I'm not asking." Their course was set. Verdari space was 3 jumps away through unstable sectors and black market corridors. The javelin moved like a ghost between stars, hopping from hidden beacon to pirate route, always one step ahead of Ascendancy patrols. Between jumps, Dax and Lisa trained in the ship's hold. She was weak, her muscles atrophied from captivity, but her spirit hadn't dimmed. Dax taught her to use a pulse pistol, how to react to movement, how to read a room. Severa watched silently. Once she would have objected. Now she understood. Lisa needed to be ready, not for revenge, for survival. At the final jump beacon before Verdari space, a signal flared across their nav screen, coded, encrypted, and unmistakably Verdari. "Clan cipher," Severa said. "That's my people." She decoded the transmission. It wasn't a welcome. It was a warning. "Do not return. Hostile presence confirmed. Traitors identified within." Dax frowned. Traitors. Severa's face was stone. "Someone inside the Verdari Council has leaked data to the Ascendancy. How bad? Bad enough that they've compromised the extraction team sent to find me. My people think I'm dead." Dax stepped closer. "What's the play?" "We go dark," Severa said. "Avoid official ports. Land in the Night Vale Verdari wilderness, deep forests, off-grid. There's a contact there who still owes me her life." Dax nodded. "Then that's our path." The hyperspace jump was tense. As the ship emerged over the world of Verdare, its beauty hit them like a wave. Silver-leafed forests stretched across continents. Rivers gleamed like molten crystal. Towering cities spiraled organically from living stone and biometal. Above it all, twin moons hung suspended in an oceanic sky. Lisa stared in awe. "It's beautiful." Severa didn't smile. "It's also dangerous." The javelin cut low through the atmosphere, cloaked and running quiet. They landed in a dense glade beneath skyscraping trees whose roots glowed faintly with bioluminescence. This place doesn't show up on orbital scans, Sever explained. My family called it the Hollow Light. It's where we trained before we were old enough to serve. You trained here, Lysa asked. Sever knelt and touched the moss-covered soil. I bled here. Hours passed. Dax kept watch while Sever ventured deeper into the woods. When she returned, she wasn't alone. A Verdari woman emerged from the shadows, taller than Severa, with a scar down one side of her face and golden tattoos curling around her neck. Dax Lisa, this is Ten, Severa said. My former blade sister. She's trustworthy. Tane bowed slightly. Word of your survival has already reached Whispers in the Deep Council. There is movement, some still loyal to the old codes, but the traitors are spreading doubt. We have proof, Dax said, holding up the shard. Tane nodded. Then you'll need to speak before the council flame. But be warned, it may already be burning with lies. That night, Sever sat alone beneath the luminous canopy. Dax joined her silent for a moment. You sure about this? He asked. No, Sever said. But it has to be done. You think they'll believe you? They'll believe the evidence. Whether they act on it is another matter. Dax looked at her, then gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. Severa turned to him, eyes shining with something unspoken. Neither are you. From within the forest, unseen by them, another set of eyes watched. Far above, a signal pulsed. The ascendancy had found them again, and the final game had already begun. The sun rose over Verdar like molten sapphire, casting the forests of silver-leaf trees in radiant light. Beneath the canopy, the journey to the Verdari capital, Tir Eloria, began in silence. The city wasn't built, it had grown organically from the living architecture of Verdari design. Towering structures spiraled upward from the roots of massive stone trees, woven through with bioluminescent vines and glass-like spires that shimmered with shifting color. Even Dax, who hated politics and alien spectacle, found himself briefly awestruck. But awe was replaced by wariness the moment they passed through the outer gates. Tan's presence helped. Her influence had earned them passage without arrest, but only just. Rumors of Severa's return had already reached the capital, and not everyone viewed her survival as good news. They were led through winding corridors to a chamber unlike anything Dax had seen, an amphitheater of translucent crystal and obsidian centered around a massive flame suspended midair. A living fire without fuel or smoke. The council flame. 12 seats surrounded it, one for each of the ruling Verdari houses. Some were occupied, others stood empty. 10 stepped forward and addressed the assembled. Honored elders. I bring Severa Virel, heir of House Virel, returned from presumed death. She bears information vital to our future. The murmurs began immediately. She is compromised, she consorts with Outworlders. House Virel was nearly disgraced by her absence. Severa stepped forward without flinching. Her voice rang out clear and sharp. You speak of disgrace while ignoring the rot that festers in your roots. The murmurs ceased. I was taken by ascendancy agents, sold into slavery on Kareos 9, hunted, used. I escaped because this human, she gestured to Dax, risked everything to help me. Together we uncovered Project Ascendant. Together we bring proof. She held up the data shard. Counselor Etrix, a tall Verdari in robes of silver thread, sneered. Proof from a stolen ascendancy core. It could be fabricated, twisted. Severa activated the shard. The air filled with projected files, schematics, prisoner logs, neural interface blueprints, even footage of experiments on human test subjects. Gasps and silence followed. Then Counselor Alera Matron of House Letha rose. This confirms what our watchers suspected, she said, that the ascendancy seeks to weaponize humanity's unique neural profile. Dax stepped forward, his voice low but steady. My sister was one of those prisoners. She's here now recovering from what they did to her. If you won't act to stop them, I will. With or without you. A heavy silence fell. Then Counselor Etrix smirked. Brave words from an outsider. He's not just an outsider, Severa said sharply. He's the key. All eyes turned to her. Severa continued slowly. The Vayari knew of humanity long before formal contact. We observed early signs, strange neural patterns, rare connections. We watched. We waited. But the ascendancy moved first. A few counselors exchanged wary looks. The reason we didn't act, Severa said, was fear. We didn't understand the resonance, what it might awaken in our own systems. But Dax, he activated an ancient Verdari vessel in the Javelin systems without training. That shouldn't be possible. Etrix laughed. A coincidence, or faulty programming. Tane stepped forward. It wasn't. I saw the records. He didn't just activate it, he synchronized with it. Alara nodded. The resonance. It's real. Another voice rang out from the entrance. That's not all that's real. Lisa stepped into the chamber, supported by one of the aides. Her presence sparked surprise and discomfort. She's proof, Severa said. The ascendancy sees her as a tool. We see her as a person. I didn't ask for any of this, Lisa said, voice rough. But now that I know what they wanted from me, I won't let them take another one of us. She met each counselor's gaze with quiet strength. You say you value honor. Prove it. An hour later, Severa, Dax, and Lisa waited in a private chamber. The verdict loomed. Dax paced. They're going to stall, he muttered. Debate. Delay. Argue about neutrality and consequences. Severa didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet. You're probably right, but you're still hoping I have to. Just then, Tan returned. The council has voted. They rose. You will not like it, she warned. The chamber reconvened. This time, all seats were filled. Alara stood. The council has reviewed the data. We acknowledge its authenticity and severity. Dax's jaw tensed. However, she continued, the Verdari will not commit to open war. Severa stepped forward. You, Alara, held up a hand. Instead, a covert task force will be formed. One that answers not to the council, but to you, Severa Varel. You will be granted limited resources, a ship, agents, time. Severa blinked. You're giving me command. You survived the ascendancy, exposed their plans, and united one of us with one of them, Alara said, glancing at Dax. That makes you dangerous, but also necessary. Etrix rose, sneering. Let her chase phantoms then, while we hold the line. Severa nodded once. Then let me be the blade in the dark. Just remember who sharpened it. That evening, in a quiet garden high above the city, Dax and Severa sat beneath a silverleaf tree. They didn't commit to war, he said. No, Severa replied. But they gave us a start. I've lived a life of scraps and grit. Never led anything. Severa turned to him, her expression soft. Then lead with me. He met her gaze. You sure about this? She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. I've never been more sure. High above in the orbital shadows of Verdar, a hidden ascendancy ship received its orders. Target Severa Varel. Directive terminate. The hunt had begun again, but this time the prey was ready. The Verdari strike vessel Ilaran's Grace shimmered as it exited low orbit above the gas giant Kavara 3, cloaked in both silence and intent. Sleek, fast, and laced with neural reactive controls, it was no ordinary scout ship. It had been refitted for one purpose: infiltration. Its new commander, Severa Varel, stood at the command console, surrounded by the soft glow of projected data. Her eyes tracked every pulse, every anomaly, every minute threat in the surrounding quadrant. Behind her, Dax Morrow leaned against a bulkhead, arms crossed. You know, he said, I never pictured myself as part of some elite alien task force. Severa didn't look back. And yet here you are, complaining on a 1,000,000-credit warship. Dax grinned. Some habits die hard. The rest of the crew moved around them, 10 Severa's trusted blade sister in second in command. Lysa, Dax's younger sister, and now their field technician and communications analyst, and Kale, a former Verdari codebreaker with more tattoos than skin showing. The mission to infiltrate an Ascendancy black site on the moon of Valis, where Project Ascendant had shifted its core research. The data shard had led them here, coordinates buried beneath terabytes of scrambled logs. Now they were close. Too close to turn back. Valis hung like a dead pearl in the shadow of its parent planet, gray, cratered with a thin atmosphere, laced with methane and ammonia. But below its surface was something very much alive. The black site facility Theta was embedded beneath the crust, protected by frequency-shielded alloys, and guarded by an AI defense grid, so advanced even Verdari infiltration tech had trouble cracking it. We'll have less than 7 minutes before their system registers the anomaly, Lisa explained, as she worked through simulation after simulation at her terminal. After that, we're dead. Then we don't give them 7 minutes, Teen said calmly, holstering her dual knives. Sevra turned to Dax. You and I will breach the data vault. Lisa and Kale will handle systems override from the forward node, Teen defensive perimeter, and fallback route. If it goes sideways, we exfil to the surface and launch the stealth pod. Dax nodded. Simple smash and grab. Sevra's eyes met his. Not simple. Necessary. The drop went smoothly. The Alaran's Grace stayed in high orbit hidden while the crew descended via a camouflage pod that drilled through Valus's brittle outer layer. They emerged in a buried vent tunnel just below the facility's southern energy grid. From there, everything was timed. Sevra and Dax moved through the lower maintenance passages, navigating in near silence. Verdari suits adjusted temperature and weight in real time, allowing them to blend in with environmental readings. But the deeper they moved, the colder the air became, not physically, but emotionally. Something was wrong. We're being watched, Dax muttered. I know, Sevra replied. But I'm not picking up life signs. Kale's voice crackled over comms. You wouldn't. The security system is a hybrid. They've wired in predictive AI nodes, preemptive behavior analysis. It's watching your intention, not just your heat signature. That's horrifying, Lysa said flatly. Welcome to the Ascendancy, Cal muttered. They reached the data vault on time. The entrance was sealed by a multi-phase biometric lock. Sevra knelt beside it, pulling a specialized interface device from her belt. Her hands moved with calculated grace. Dax scanned the corridor behind them. 3 minutes before system ping. I'll need 2, Sevra said. The lock hissed, flickered, then disengaged. They entered. The vault was massive, ringed in vertical data pillars and humming with stored memory. In the center was a core terminal, pulsing blue, shaped like a vertical crystal embedded in a base of obsidian alloy. Sevra approached it, fingers brushing the interface. It responded immediately, lighting up with hundreds of cascading holograms. Something's wrong, she whispered. Dax was already moving toward her. What is it? This isn't just data, Sevra said. It's alive. The vault's defenses activated with no warning. The walls shimmered. The lights pulsed. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Then the synthetic voice echoed across the chamber. Verdari signature detected. Activation protocol 47 initiated. Sevra staggered back, her eyes wide. What the hell is Protocol 47? Dax shouted. I don't know, Sevra snapped. Outside the vault, Tane's voice crackled urgently. Motion in the corridor. They've launched defense drones. And something else. I don't know what it is, but it's Verdari designed. Repeat that, Sevra asked. It's not Ascendancy built, Tane said. It's using our technology. Back in the vault, the central pillar glowed brighter. A hologram flared into life, an image of a humanoid, but not quite Verdari. Not quite human either. Its skin shimmered with chromatic overlays, and its face shifted every few seconds. Sevra Varel, it said in a dozen voices layered over one another. Heir, Watcher, Survivor. Dax raised his rifle. We've got a problem, No Sevra whispered. We have a message. The hologram continued. Project Ascendant was never theirs. It began long before the Ascendancy existed. Before your houses formed, you abandoned it, buried it, and now they've unearthed it. Who are you? Sevra demanded. I am the result of what you started and what they corrupted. I am what remains when knowledge is forgotten and ambition fills the void. Dax pointed his weapon. Do we need to shoot it? I don't know, Sevra said. Consider it a final trial, the entity said. If you want the truth, take it. The core opened. Inside was a second shard, larger, darker, pulsing with power. Sevra hesitated, then stepped forward, and took it. Everything collapsed. The vault began to shudder, walls fracturing, systems failing. Lisa screamed over comms. They're crashing the grid, full lockdown, evac now. Dax grabbed Sevra's arm. We're moving. They sprinted through the collapsing corridors, the echo of machines behind them. Kale and Lisa met them at the fallback point, faces pale, gear scorched. What the hell happened? Lisa gasped. Sevra picked up something ancient, Dax said. And now the ghosts are pissed. They launched from the surface seconds before a containment blast sealed the moon's core. From orbit facility Theta imploded, folding in on itself in a controlled gravitational pulse. Everything inside erased, but they had the shard, and with it a secret older than war. Severa stared at it in the palm of her hand. This wasn't just a research station. What was it, Dax asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. A vault, for a forgotten weapon. And we just unlocked it. The War Council chamber aboard the Alaran's Grace had gone silent. The dark shards Severa had retrieved from Facility Theta now pulsed atop the central table, casting flickering shadows across the crew's faces. The artifact wasn't just data, it was presence. Ancient, aware, and deeply tied to both Verdari and human lineage. Tyne stared at it with narrowed eyes. It's Verdari, but older than any design in our archives. Severa nodded, her voice tense. It predates the houses, predates our current history. The data in this shard doesn't just explain Project Ascendant, it is Project Ascendant. Dax leaned forward, meaning Severa activated the holographic interface. The shard responded immediately, displaying a sweeping projection star maps, genetic models, neural patterns, weapon systems, some recognizable, many incomprehensible. Lisa gasped. This is thousands of years old. Kale's fingers danced over his interface pad. It's not just a research archive, it's a manifesto, an encoded message from an ancient Verdari faction that once tried to synthesize a perfect neural interface between species and machine. And it failed, Severa said grimly. Or so they thought. The room fell silent again. Dax stood. You're telling me this project started before humans ever made contact with the galaxy? No, Severa replied. I'm telling you, humans were involved long before they were supposed to be. She pointed at a section of the display, an old record of primitive humans taken from Earth millennia ago by an unknown species tested for neurosymbiosis. Some were left behind, some were hidden, some were changed. You're descended from them, she said quietly, and the Ascendancy figured it out. That's what Project Ascendant has always been, reactivating what was buried in your blood. Tane frowned. So now what, we take this back to the Council? Kel shook his head. No time. We intercepted a transmission. The Ascendancy is mobilizing. Full-scale deployment. They know the vault was breached. Dax's fists clenched. Then they know we have the shard. They'll want it back, Lisa said, and they'll burn half the galaxy to get it. Severa closed the projection. Then we don't let them. The Alaran's Grace dropped out of stealth above a small moon near the edge of Verdari space. The Ascendancy fleet was already there, dozens of cruisers, heavy carriers, and warships converging on a quiet Verdari relay station meant to be neutral territory. A message was already broadcasting, surrender the fugitive Severa Varel and the stolen artifact, or face eradication. Dax glanced at the fleet display. They're not bluffing. No, Severa said. They're escalating because we've exposed them. Tane raised an eyebrow. So what's the plan? We can't outgun them. No, Severa said again, but we can outmaneuver them. She tapped the console. Open a line to the Ascendancy flagship. Everyone stared. You're going to talk to them, Kale asked incredulously. Yes, Severa said, but not to surrender, to threaten. The holographic feed opened. A tall Ascendancy commander appeared, flanked by armored elites. His eyes gleamed with contempt. Verdari renegade, return what you stole. Severa held up the shard. You mean this? The commander didn't blink. I know what you're afraid of, Severa said. Not this device, but what it reveals. We both know Project Ascendant wasn't yours to begin with. His jaw tightened. We've decrypted it, she continued. If I upload this to the relay station's broadcast core, it'll go out to every major channel in 3 systems. You won't be able to bury the truth. You wouldn't dare. I absolutely would, she said. Because the galaxy deserves to know that you've been experimenting on humans using Verdari tech to create neural weapon systems while claiming moral superiority. The commander didn't answer. Dax stepped into frame. And if you're wondering whether she's bluffing, I say go ahead. Call it. See what happens when the galaxy watches your house of lies burn. The connection cut. 20 seconds later, the Ascendancy fleet began to move away from the station. They're backing off, Kale said, stunned. They're running. They're regrouping, Ten corrected. This isn't over. No, Severa agreed, But now we hold the high ground. Back on Verdar, the council reconvened in an emergency session. This time, Severa wasn't called to defend herself. She was asked to lead. The revelation of Project Ascendant, supported by the Shard's data and Lisa's testimony, forced the Verdari leadership to publicly condemn the Ascendancy and initiate an alliance pact with human colonies in the frontier systems. The Verdari had long feared humanity's unpredictable nature. Now they feared losing them. In the days that followed, Severa was appointed Architect of Alliance, tasked with building the first cross-species command network to counter Ascendancy influence. Dax became her military advisor, Tyne her intelligence chief. Lysa, the first human Verdari tech liaison in recorded history. But it wasn't titles that mattered, it was purpose. On the eve of the formal announcement, Dax stood alone on a balcony overlooking the Verdari capital. Below, the silver forests shimmered under twin moons. Severa joined him. "You're not wearing the new uniform," she said softly. "I still prefer old armor," Dax replied. "Easier to run in." She smiled. "You know what this means, don't you? We're no longer fugitives. We're something worse," she said, stepping closer. "We're symbols." He took her hand. "Then let's be symbols they fear." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "They'll come for us again. We'll be ready." A pause. Then a quiet truth. "I don't think I was ever fighting to save Lisa," Dax said. "No, I think I was trying to find a reason to keep fighting at all." Severa looked up at him, golden eyes soft. And now he looked out at the stars at the vast, fragile peace they were trying to forge. "Now I'm fighting for us." Epilogue. In a vault beneath an abandoned Ascendancy citadel, a lone researcher stared at a flickering projection. The last log entry of Project Ascendant played on loop. Not a warning, a prophecy. When the blood of two worlds binds, the mind of machines will awaken, and the galaxy will choose salvation or ascension. The researcher smiled and began the upload.